Hi foodies, this is Foodie Phil and Critic Rebecca, and this week on Foodie on a Budget, it's the Instapot.
I really like having the Instapot. There's a lot of things it's great for, and I'm going to show you some of the staple things that I almost always make in my Instapot, and I don't make them any other way now.
As a reminder, the Instapot can't do everything, but it can do some things really well. Let's get into it.
Alright, so we're going to do some classic things I like making in the Instapot all the time, and one of them is rice. So we're going to make some rice today. It's a great side for a meal, or you can use it for a lot of different recipes and things.
So we're going to start with 2 cups of rice, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, and a pinch of salt for flavor. So first you're going to rinse your rice. You want to rinse it till it goes clear, so that helps cook the rice better. A lot of mistakes with rice is just not rinsing it thoroughly enough.
You can add that directly to your Instapot, and then you're going to add a little bit more water than the amount of rice that you have. So I had 2 cups of rice, and I'm going to add 2 cups of water plus a little bit. So if you had more, you could do the same thing. 3 cups of rice would be 3 and a little bit of water, and you'll just continue that ratio if you want less or more. And then a tablespoon of olive oil. You could use butter or a different oil if you want, but that will give some flavor, as well as the salt. And then you're going to seal your Instapot and make sure that your nozzle is on seal, and then you'll push the rice cook button. If it doesn't have the rice button, just put it on high pressure for 12 minutes. One thing to remember with the Instapot is that it will take some time to come up to pressure. So even though it's only 12 minutes, it'll take longer than that to get to your finished product. And then it will have a low signal on when it's done cooking, which means that it's done cooking but it's still staying warm. And then you can mix it up and serve it right away.
Some dangerous points in this is that if it's on low too long, it will actually start burning the rice and drying it out.
We have a bad habit of serving it, but then leaving it in the Instapot and then forgetting to turn off that keep warm. Alright, so another Instapot one we like to make is hard-boiled eggs. You can see our ramen video, or to have hard-boiled eggs to make egg salad, or just to have on hand. So I'm going to use the wire rack that came with the Instapot, and I'm going to add about a cup of water. There are egg racks that you can find on Amazon, but this works just well if you want to make 5 or 6 eggs. If you want to make any more than that, you could do it in batches or get one of those racks. So I'm just going to add those on that rack. Make sure that your water level isn't above your rack touching your eggs. And then you're going to close your lid, the nozzle to the seal direction. And then you're going to turn it on high pressure. If you want soft-boiled eggs, you would do 5 minutes, medium would be 6 minutes, or hard-boiled would be 7 minutes. And one thing to be aware of is that once it's done cooking, it'll turn to that low and it'll start counting up. But the longer they're in there, the more they're going to cook. So if you want a medium-boiled egg, if you leave it in there for too long, it will become a hard-boiled egg. And then you're going to want to put them in ice water right away. So one thing is, it's locked until the pressure is released. So you're going to have to release the pressure with that nozzle before you can open it. And then you can put your eggs in an ice water bath to cool them to stop the cooking process. These eggs peel really easily. I usually just tap them gently, and then if you dip them in the water to try to get some water underneath the membrane as you're peeling them, they peel really easily. One egg was pilfered from this batch. When she had an egg, she was okay to go off and play. Alright, so now we're going to do yogurt.
This is one of the main reasons we actually got an Instapot, was to make homemade yogurt.
This is a great thing to make when you have a lot of extra milk in your fridge that you want to use up. I have a mixture of whole milk and 1% milk, but you can also throw in half and half or heavy whipping cream if you want to use that too, to make it thicker, creamier, and richer. But you will also need a couple tablespoons to half a cup plain yogurt that doesn't have any flavorings in it. You can use a whole milk yogurt, a Greek style yogurt, and it'll have the cultures in it to make the yogurt that you're going to end up with. So you're going to add your milk to your Instapot. You can add kind of whatever you have. You want to keep it below max level, but I usually do a half a gallon to a gallon of milk at a time. It kind of depends on how much yogurt you want to end up with. So I put in about a gallon there. And then if you have a yogurt setting, you're going to set it to the yogurt more setting, which is going to say, and it will say boil, because you're going to boil the milk to kill off any of the bacteria that's in your milk. So this is one thing to remember, that like you are heating your milk and pasteurizing it, and so you don't have to worry if your milk hasn't been pasteurized yet.
A big thing to note is to not add the cup of cultures yet, because you do not want to kill the bacteria at this point.
Yep, save that on the side for later. Make sure that you seal it. You turn your lid and you seal your Instapot and turn your nozzle to seal. If your Instapot doesn't have the yogurt setting, you're still going to heat up your milk. So one way to do that is to put your Instapot to keep warm for about 40 to 45 minutes, and then you'll open it and whisk it. Put it on the saute function. Use a thermometer to temp it, and then keep heating it up until it reaches 185 degrees. So once your milk is heated up to that 185, then we're going to want to cool it down. So you're going to open your Instapot and pull out that inner pot, and then you can just set it out and let it cool down to room temperature. You're going to use your thermometer, and it's going to want to be between 100 and 110 degrees Fahrenheit. One way to quicken this process is to put it in your kitchen sink and then create a cold water or ice water bath around the outside of the pot, and then that will help it to cool down faster. So then once it's at 110 or 100 degrees, in that range, you're going to add your plain yogurt culture. And so that's just a plain yogurt that you have. The texture will end up being a little bit similar. So if you want a silkier texture of a yogurt, then use that in your starter. So then you're going to do the next step of your yogurt making, which once it's cooled down, you've whisked in your plain yogurt. Then you're going to put it again to your yogurt setting on the normal setting. And it'll take about 8 hours to cook down. So if you don't have that yogurt setting, you can place the inner pot back into the Instapot and seal the lid with a closed seal, and then you can wrap it up in a towel, and it'll keep that heat and leave that for about 8 hours. But if you have that yogurt setting, make sure you set it to the yogurt, and it'll keep it at the precise temperature that is needed. And you can just let it sit. All right, so I actually let this go overnight and set it for the 8 hours again, just because it was going to be done at around midnight and I didn't want to stay up that late. So that is another thing you can do if the timing doesn't work out for you. But then once it had enough time for that culture to grow, turn into your yogurt, then you are going to take it out, and you can make it thicker if you want to. It's great just the way it is, but if you want it to be extra thick, you can strain it, and you can use either a cheesecloth or a dish towel that has a finer weave. So I use a cheesecloth here and just doubled it over a couple times through it. So what that means is you're going to find a strainer and a bowl to catch your whey. That's going to be whey that you can use for some other things.
Like smoothies, to add protein to smoothies.
I use it to make a pizza crust sometimes, but look at that yogurt. It's already thick, but it will have some whey that can collect. Some can collect on top. You can just dump some of that off right away, and then you can just spoon some into your sieve, and it'll become even thicker. And for the 1 gallon of milk that I used, I got 2 quarts of yogurt out of it.
A lovely, lovely yogurt there.
You can just let this strain out. It doesn't have to be a rush. It'll take a little bit of time. And then just when it's as thick as you want it to be, then you can spoon it into some containers to keep in your fridge. Then you can scoop the rest into your sieve and then repeat that process. So one thing I like to do is I like to flavor my yogurt for my kids, and so I will add some either jam or honey, whatever you like in your yogurt.
What's really nice about this is you are in control of the sugar content in the yogurt.
Alright, so here I have my quart of plain and quart of strawberry yogurt. And here's a bonus tip is I like to make popsicles for my kids. I have an 18-month-old that is teething and they like ice all the time. So I just throw some into popsicle makers and keep them in my freezer. These ones I found at IKEA and I like them because they don't take up a ton of freezer space.
A fantastic use of the Instapot is after a chicken meal, whether that's a whole chicken or rotisserie. Save the bones and some of the skin and some of the meat for use in creating chicken stock. So we're using the vegetables we could scrounge around for. We had a parsnip. Make sure you really peel it well as it has the wax, which helps parsnips keep in the fridge for a really long time. We have 2 carrots there. We didn't have any celery because critic Rebecca hates celery and groans at me every time I buy it. And then we also found half of an onion, probably our last onion, as we used most of them for that French onion soup. So you're just going to roughly cut all of it and pour it in the Instapot there. When you're getting the bones, skin, and that little bit of meat, make sure you get all the flavor of the font in the bottom there. And you're going to cover with as much stock as you want. Just make sure it covers everything and doesn't go past that max level.
Alright, so then you're going to turn your lid and seal your Instapot, and then you're going to put it on the broth function, and that is 4 hours. And that's it. It's super easy. You just throw everything in and wait. And so then when it's done, you can release the pressure from your Instapot. When you're releasing the pressure, you want to make sure that your hand is not above the nozzle because hot steam will come out. So just be careful when you're doing that. So then once the steam is out, then you can take off the lid and you're going to pull out your bones and any vegetables that you just pull out of that broth. So I just use tongs, and you're just going to try to get rid of those. Will just be thrown away. So all the flavor has been save as much broth as you can and let them drip out into your broth. And then you're going to want to strain out your broth to make sure you didn't miss any little bits or bones.
You worked so hard for this broth, you don't want to miss any drop.
Alright, so once your broth is all strained out, you are ready to use it. You can keep it in the fridge. If there's any extra fat on top, it will coagulate and get hard, and you can just scoop that off if you don't want that extra fat in there for a clearer broth. But look at that beautiful broth.
Some things you can make with it are rice pilaf, chicken tortilla soup, matzo ball soup, egg drop soup, or any other soup you fancy with a chicken broth base. This is the best way to make it at home. It has the richest flavors, plus you're in control of things such as seasonings, salt level. We don't add much seasoning to the basic broth because then it is a blank canvas for you guys to create your art in your own kitchen.
It is really nice for making soups out of it. Maybe we'll have to make a chicken tortilla soup for a future video just because you can change it so much just by adding different spices. And you can start off that way, but then if you have that blank soup, then you can add them when you're doing your cooking. We also like to freeze some of it, so we will put it in quart-sized bags. Make sure you label them and keep it in your freezer for when you want to use it. It'll stay fresh.
Hope you guys like those tips and tricks, and hope you guys start to learn to love your Instapot, but maybe not as much as Phil does. But make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Have a great day.
Oh my goodness.